I'm a Tar Heel born, I'm a Tar Heel bred, and when I die, I'm a Tar Heel bred. So rock, Carolina.
Oh my gosh, I didn't see you there. Thanks for coming back, and if this is your first time, welcome. We are the WOW Board, and this is Common Pod's launch with Academic Thriving. Next, we'll be talking about student life and studying.
Student life and studying here on Carolina's campus. To get more in depth with our introductions and tell you more about who we are, I'm Molly Malik. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. I'm a current sophomore, and I'm studying business administration and Hispanic studies. I'll turn it over to my friend.
Thanks, Molly. I'm Ashini. I'm a first-year student. I'm from Delaware on the East Coast, and I'm also studying business, but pre-business right now, which we'll get into in the next episodes.
I'm Bella. I'm from Holly Springs, North Carolina, right outside of Raleigh. I'm also a freshman, and I'm also studying pre-business.
Hi, I'm Claire, and I'm a third-year quantitative biology major from Cary, North Carolina.
Awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I was in the library for a long time today. Was anyone else?
I was at the undergraduate library.
Okay. I was at Davis, so you would have caught me on the first floor, which is low-key
The
my
chaotic
preference. It's a little chaotic, but I kind of like noise when I work. That's a good substitute for like the coffee shops. But anyways, I was there doing a Spanish paper that was due at 2. I started it at 1, but it all worked out.
That's just how it is sometimes.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I think it's really important that we kind of like talk about the libraries a little bit more. We have 12 on campus, which is pretty cool. What are your guys' favorites?
I'm gonna have to go with the UL for now. I do think I haven't explored as many as I want to. Like some people go to like the health sciences library and all of that. Haven't really done that yet, but I definitely really like the UL. Davis kind of overstimulates me sometimes, to be so fair, but I have gone on the higher floors in Davis because they're slightly calmer, but I get the not wanting to study in complete silence, so. What about you?
I'd say that Davis is probably my favorite. I agree with you, and I think that this is a relatable thing. As a freshman, you aren't able to make it to all of the libraries your first year, or even really outside of the undergraduate in Davis is not really common just for mobility issues, and it's hard to get to some of them, especially if you don't know the bus system. But Davis first floor is definitely my favorite. That's where me and my friends always go to study and do work, and you kind of can just be loud and not worry about anything. If I do need a quiet place, though, I will go to the upper floors to focus a little more.
I also like Davis, but only more recently, because I didn't really go there until like last semester when my friend kept on inviting me. But I do like the ambience. I think the UL is a lot better if you have actual assignments you need to log into. Davis is like first and second floor is like group project vibes, which includes the getting off topic part. But the undergrad library is usually like pretty quiet, and when you see everyone else working, then you also feel pressure to work. But one place I do think is very cozy, and I think less people know about, is the Stone Center Library. So that's near the Genome Sciences building, and I think it's quite cozy, so I do like going there sometimes.
I've also really liked the Park Library this semester. I'm taking a sports journalism class where we put on a show, so I always have to rent equipment from the Park Library, but they also have some smaller tables that you can study at, and it's usually pretty quiet in there. Not a ton of people know about it, I think. Yeah. And even though it's in the Hussman School of Media and Journalism, like anyone can go. I'm not actually in Hussman,
Right.
So that's been a nice resource so far. But you know what my bucket list item is to study more in Wilson because it's beautiful.
Ooh, yeah.
And kind of fun fact, they actually have like a mask of Napoleon Bonaparte down there. They also have some other fun artifacts, so maybe we should take a group trip sometime when we're not actually studying to the library.
One day my friend and I actually were, like, it was like a random weekend or a weekday, I don't know, but we like explored it because like it's actually a museum and it was interesting. But yeah, I don't know, like it's so, because a lot of my friends say that it's too silent and they feel like they can't even breathe in there. So I'm like, I guess I get that kind of, but yeah, I have to kind of check it out more.
Well, and they host a really cool event, which is Clue, and they put on like a big like just activity game and it's pretty intense. But last year we had a power outage during it, so the game was kind of canceled. But this is our year, so if you want to team up. But anyways, that's a little off topic. Nonetheless, I think maybe we could talk a little bit more about some of our favorite other study spots on campus outside of the libraries. Because as important as those are, there's also a bunch of other resources and places that we can get comfortable to do our work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I really like cafes. Like, this is like not necessarily a center for any academic help, but it's like Stone and Leaf Cafe, and then on South Campus for freshmen if they want to be closer to their dorms. Port City Java, I know during last final season I was there with my friend all the time because we were studying for our final together, and the vibes are just nice, and then you have great access to food and drinks like whatever you want. So I really like studying at cafes.
I'm not going to lie, I have found a bunch of really, I'd say niche study spots just by kind of wandering around, which I suggest all incoming freshmen do. The first couple of weeks, just wander and find different hidden spots that you might like. Upstairs in the student union on the 3rd floor, there's a little area up there that I like to sometimes just sit. They have cool chairs and
I like that.
it's really a nice space. Also, I just recently figured this out. Above on the, I guess technically it's the 3rd floor of the student stores, there's also some seating, which can be really nice. It overlooks the pit. So just like spots like that, I'd say I also study a lot in the study rooms. I live in Granville, so there's the study rooms on each floor, which I'm sure is common for any dorm building that you live in. I would recommend using those, especially if you want to study late, but you don't want to be too far away from your actual room. So.
Well, speaking of cafes, have you guys been to Meantime? It's in Campus
Once.
Y, and they have, so the first floor is like a little coffee place, and once you get your coffee or drink or pastries or whatever, the top floor has a bunch of cute seating. They do have a classroom, sometimes it's in use, usually like in the mornings, but then in the afternoon it's free and anyone can hop in and study.
Okay. I only go there for their pumpkin chai muffin. It's pretty incredible. But I think, on that note, it's kind of clear that a lot of us study with our friends, and like sometimes we need to do it differently, but we all have different study styles. So how do you guys kind of think like you found that out during your college journey? What works for you? Obviously, it's kind of just assignment dependent. I know I'm not doing a lot of chem work, so maybe my business coursework is different. Maybe it's more group project based. I don't know. But what's kind of that journey look like for you guys?
I think that's a really good question, yeah, because I would say I did have my study methods in high school, but I do think that they changed just given how college classes work, and sometimes there can be less guidance than somewhere like high school, and that, that's just how things work as you're like growing up and taking harder courses. But you really have to figure out, like, one thing I just really grown to understand more is that you really do have to pay, like, you have to go and you have to really pay attention. Because that way you won't be behind and have to make up for all of it later. And then so once you do feel on track, all that's really left to do is reviewing things. And it's also been an interesting journey because there's such a diversity of classes. Like, I have had to take STEM-related math classes, but a lot of them have been for some gen eds, which we'll also talk about, but a lot of them have been more writing-focused or theory-focused, or based on readings that we had to do. So really like handwriting, I think is helpful for like memory, of course, and just going through it and active recall rather than passively reading, because you're not absorbing as much, I found.
Dang, I need to do a little bit more of that. It's kind of it's a fluid process.
Yeah,
like we're always
for sure.
still figuring it out, and I'm like, this weekend I gotta lock in differently than I did last weekend, and I'm like, I don't know if it can be a friend type of study date,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
exactly.
saying? But
Going
I'll take that with me.
off of both of your points, I think it's a lot of trial and error, especially your first year, and I would assume any year in college, I think it's a lot of trial and error because each semester you're going to have different classes, and I know last semester I had, in my opinion, very easy classes in terms of coursework and what I had to complete. This semester is a lot more challenging, so that's kind of taken me for a turn in the beginning because, like, I actually have to study now, not with my friends, and, focus a little more. So I think it's just trial and error, seeing what works best for you, what study spots you find. I would say find some good study spots you can go to with friends and then also without friends. So that way when you need to have one of those alone studying days, where you feel most comfortable?
I like to do homework with friends because when I'm preparing for classes, I find that when I'm with friends, it's a lot harder to focus. So like pre-class work, usually I'll do it on my own, but like post-class work, I like to do with friends because I feel like it's when you're synthesizing content you've learned, it's easier in the presence of other people.
Yeah. And I think, one of the beneficial parts about being in the libraries, like, as much as I love a good cafe, is that the libraries actually have books, which I don't think a lot of people actually know sometimes. So the librarians are a great resource, and there's actually, like, librarians dedicated to different departments, different subjects, some really, really niche subjects. So they're really helpful kind of when you're writing that paper. You want to elevate it a little bit. You want to do more than just your basic Google search. So I like being in a library for that reason, and I think it's a pretty underutilized resource. Those librarians are also willing to meet with us anytime. So have you guys used them before?
No, I was just gonna say I definitely, now that you mention it, I really do want to use them more as resources because I know that they have a lot more knowledge to give than people obviously realize. But the most exposure that I've had to the libraries in terms of like the books and the people who work there is having to check out books, and if I didn't really want to buy them for classes, I honestly was like, we're going to move on from these books soon, so I just got them at Davis or something. But I was able to ask people, because Davis is huge, so I was able to ask people where would this be found, and there's certain really old like big texts that they said are in the course reserves where like you can check them out for like 24 hours, or like some of them for like 2 hours. I don't know, it's just a diversity of things you can do. So I have gotten a little bit of exposure to that, but I definitely want to talk to librarians more.
Going off of the point of Davis, should we talk a little bit more about Davis as a whole, because that is, I would say that's probably the most popular library on campus, just as,
It's a little bit
general.
of a pillar of our community.
Yeah.
It's the biggest library, so of course more people are going to it.
Right.
But when you were talking about getting help for papers, other than like finding resources that are like citable and for like written papers, like in probably humanities subjects, you can also get help for like research papers. So I took a poli-sci class that did a lot of coding, and then we were working with like public databases. So I really didn't know how to find anything.
I'm in that class right now.
Poly 281.
Yeah.
OMG, who's your professor?
I think he's new.
Oh.
His name is like Itai is his first name.
Okay.
Second name, last name starts with M.
Okay, how's it going?
It's not as bad as I was a little more nervous about it before, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, because I went into it without any coding experience,
Me too.
so I was like kind of nervous.
Yeah.
But my professor took it pretty slow, so it was quite good. But I was doing a project, and then I was looking for databases on like asthma prevalence in populations in North Carolina, and it's just not something that's very easy to search for when you're on your own. So I went to the research help desk. It's like called ODM. You can find it if you search online, but they're in Davis. If you don't know where it is, you can just go up to the front desk and ask them, and it was very helpful.
Totally. And also we have the interlibrary loan system, I think it's called, so that means we can borrow books from schools like NC State and Duke, and they'll be delivered super quick. So anyways, the libraries are a great resource, but it could be time to kind of talk about some of our Tar Heel takes when it comes to Davis a little bit as well. We have the special Davis streaking, which happens. I don't know if anyone, we can't dive too deep into that one, but there's a lot going on. Even when I was there today, they had a bunch of different pistachio flavored, like, goodies, and
What?
I think it was in honor of some sort of holiday, I don't know, but it kind of just goes to show that our libraries are about more than just studying, and that is a big part about UNC. I mean, if you're coming here, it's a rigorous coursework, that you're just going to have to be working a lot of the time, but our students find a way to have fun and get a good balance going. So maybe we can talk about more like the balance aspect of things here on campus, and how we kind of keep that balance and make sure that we're taking care of our mental health while also, being on the grind.
I think the library services and just different services on campus do a really great job at making sure, or helping us feel a little better, especially I know during midterm weeks outside of Davis there was a bunch of stuff going on, just to, whether they were giving out free snacks or just little goodies to help us feel better and get us through the midterm season, which is kind of brutal. And also finals, I remember they had a bunch of wellness opportunities at Davis. I know I got like free coffee outside of Davis, and there was miniature ponies or horses or something
Yeah,
one
and,
time.
like, dogs.
I didn't. Yeah, dogs. I didn't go to that. I wish I did. But I think that they do a really good job of helping us feel, I guess, okay, because it can get overwhelming when you have a final or a midterm in every class. So I really appreciate how they really try to help us feel better.
Totally. I mean, it kind of just, in general, I think you feel part of the community when you step foot in the libraries. I think
Yeah.
a lot of us would say that that's where we spend most of our time sometimes, depending on the week, of course, but you know that everybody's kind of in the same boat as you, and then that there's also a great staff who's there to take care and help you with anything that you need. So I think that's a pretty cool aspect of things. But as for other studying and taking care of work, what are some of the things you guys do to like stay organized and stay on it?
I think one really big thing that I feel myself struggling with before, even though it's gotten better still, is being surrounded, like even though being surrounded by friends and the whole community makes you feel better in a way and like you're not alone, at the same time it can become a lot of pressure around you because it feels like, and also to be completely fair, I do think that there's some people who might be more performative about what they're doing rather than like actually doing it and talking honestly, and I think like it's a natural human thing, but then it has a little bit of a negative impact on me sometimes where I see people and I just the natural like comparison to other people and things like that. So I think one thing really important is to just be more focused on what I'm doing so that I get all that stuff done and I work for myself and my personal growth and look less at other people when that becomes hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any last kind of tips and feedback for our group before we head out from this first episode?
I'd say I think that one of the most important things is just find your study spot. Try out all the libraries the first week. I think I went to undergraduate at Wilson and Davis. Just find your spot, and it's okay if your spot is not the same as somebody else's, or if somebody else might make a comment. Just find where you're most comfortable studying, because that will really help you throughout the next 4 years.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for our first episode about student life and libraries.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Common Pod's Launch with Academic Thriving. Be sure to follow our social media found in the description below. And don't forget to check out our site at go.unc.edu/pods for more Common Pod's Launch content. Until next time!